Interpreters are available for any speaker in the series if the YMCA is contacted before 3 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the Friday lecture. If you have any questions, contact the front desk, 337-1500. For those of you all coming in, we do have some seats available on this side of the room still, so that is an option. Friday Forum is rebroadcast on WEFT 90.1 Community Radio, Urbana Public Television, and in some cases, YouTube. That's right, YouTube. After the presentation, we will begin our question and answer period using the remote microphone to field questions. Please wait to ask your questions until you have been given the microphone. If you need to leave during the presentation, please feel free to discreetly slip out. If you are a student here for a class, please make sure to sign in on the table. Sign in on the sheet that is circulating. There is also a sign-in sheet at the welcome table. If you are, that's already there twice. So without further ado, I'd like to invite James Kilgore, community leader and member, here to introduce today's speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Good afternoon to everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be able to introduce Dana Kaplan. I'm going to give you her official title, which is the Executive Director of the Juvenile Justice Project of Louisiana, which is a statewide legal and advocacy organization dedicated to reform of Louisiana's juvenile justice system based in New Orleans. But she's much more than that to us here in Champaign-Urbana, because a year and a half ago we began a campaign to stop the building of a multi-million-dollar jail. As Champaign-Urbana Citizens for Peace and Justice, we believe that jails were the local manifestation of mass incarceration, and that the county should spend its money on other things besides building shiny new jail cells. So as we began our campaign, we looked around the country to find out what had happened in other places around the issues of stopping jails and redirecting money into preventive programs that build human beings and don't help lock people up. So the name Dana Kaplan kept resurfacing as we talked to people, as we looked on the internet, and so forth. So her work particularly in upstate New York and also in New Orleans was a great inspiration for us in our campaign. And in particular, I think, and she's going to tell you the story in much more detail than I will, but in particular, the campaign in New Orleans inspired us because Katrina wiped out the jail there, and of course, the criminal justice folks saw that as an opportunity to get a beautiful new facility, bigger and better than what was there before. But Dana and other people saw it as a different kind of opportunity. So I'll let her tell you how that story panned out. And we learned a lot from the campaigns that she carried out in New York and New Orleans in terms of the use of creative tactics, in terms of how to engage with elected political leaders and so forth. So it's very much a pleasure for me to be able to meet her for the first time and to hear her story, which I'm sure will inspire you, and I hope it will also inspire you to help us in the latest stage of our campaign to stop the county jail here and to come to our upcoming events. I'm sure Dana won't mind if I give a short plug. Tomorrow we have a Unity March, the 10th Annual Unity March, which has been organized by Champaign-Urbana Citizens for Peace and Justice for the last decade. So we'll be meeting at 12 o'clock at the Champaign Housing Authority. And then on the 24th of October, there's a county board meeting where we are hoping that they will once and for all vote for $0 for a jail in the 2014 budget and allocate the money that they would have spent there, at least some of it, for programs to keep people out of jail. So I'll now turn you over to Dana and let her tell you the stories of her encounters with jail building projects and other criminal justice efforts. Please welcome Dana Kaplan.
Well, it is definitely an honor to be here, and I will start just by saying that my involvement in working on issues of criminal justice actually started when I was an undergraduate and actually went to hear a talk by Angela Davis, and she inspired me to become involved and start to work at that time at the San Francisco County Jail. And that path and that moment obviously kind of sent me down a course of making this in many ways the issue that I decided to focus my life's work on. So I was particularly honored to hear that you all had listened to Angela Davis just a couple weeks ago. I don't presume to, I'm glad there was a week in between her and I, first of all. But I also want to say, especially for those of you who are in your undergraduate career and early on in figuring out kind of what you want to make of your future, that it's a good way to start by hearing talks like this. So obviously, you know, saying that my career in working, and it's not a career, it's kind of a mission, working to change our country's criminal justice policies began, I guess, you know, 18 years ago when I heard that Angela Davis talk. There's many, many stories I could tell between now and then, and I won't go into all of them, but what I will say is that throughout the years there's stories and experiences that come up consistently that keep on reminding me why I do that work. And one of those stories was just a couple years ago. I had been living in Louisiana, in New Orleans, for a couple years, and I was spending an afternoon at a prison right outside Baton Rouge. And I was meeting with a number of individuals who had been sentenced to life without parole when they were juveniles. So it's men and women who are serving the sentence in the state of Louisiana, but I was meeting with a group of men who were serving life sentences since they were 15 or 16. And I was talking to one of them who was about my age, and so early 30s, and we were talking about what his employment was, you know, what his job was in the prison. And he said, well, each day I go and I work in Governor Bobby Jindal's mansion. And I said, okay, you know, you work for Governor Jindal. What do you do for Governor Jindal? And he said, well, I'm his butler. I serve food to the kids. I cut sandwiches for them. I serve at all the state dinners. And he told some funny stories about how the kids misbehave. And I drove home from Baton Rouge that day, and all I could think about was the fact that this man could be trusted to serve food for the governor's children, but he would never have the opportunity to even be considered for parole eligibility. And I also thought about, you know, that trajectory went back to what had happened to him when he was 15 and what he had done, admittedly, unexcusable acts, but what he had done when he was 15 that had set him on this course, and what my life looked like when I was 15 at a very good public high school in New York City. And it indicated a couple things to me. Both, one, what are the life circumstances that send people on very different trajectories, and what is our responsibility to change that? But then two, how far our criminal justice system in the United States has come from what it should be about, which is about improving public safety. And if we can say that someone is to be trusted in the governor's mansion, but they can't be trusted for parole eligibility, obviously we've come very, very far from the tenets of what a public safety system should be about. Now, it's funny because we don't even often tell that story. When you talk to people and you say, you know, that everyone who works in the governor's mansion in Louisiana and everyone who staffs the state capitol is a prisoner, people say, well, you have to get that story out, get the New York Times, let's talk about all the people in the governor's mansion that are serving life sentences. And the thing that's complicated about that is that while on the one hand we want to expose that, we also know that in Louisiana, if we do too much of a focus on the issue, our governor might respond by ending the practice of these guys having good jobs.